Packing for the World Championships.
Look ahead at the days ahead at the most important archery event of the season.
And Brady Ellison sticks his foot in the fun wheel.
Ouch. That and more on the inaugural episode of the Easton Target Podcast with me, George Tekmitchov, and Steve, the
Big Cat
Anderson. And we're live from the Easton corner office here in sunny Salt Lake City, Steve. We've got about 20 hours before we head to the airport right now, and packing has been on both our minds. We've got Copenhagen that we're headed to, which is a fantastic city. Have you been there before?
Have not been to Copenhagen. First time Copenhagen.
It is gorgeous. It is just beautiful, and the people are so nice. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's the most expensive city I've ever visited.
Well, I guess it's a good thing we're going on Uncle Greg's dime.
Well, I don't know if I'd put it out quite that bluntly, but yeah, you're right. We're very fortunate in that we're actually going to support World Archery's equipment facility there, the equipment repair facility. We've been appointed technicians for that, and so obviously very, very fortunate with the ringside seat for the event.
Yeah, so how are you going to pack for an event like this, George?
Well, if I were competing, it would be different, but the same principles apply. You know, when I travel, I like to travel light. I know you do too.
Right. I tend to have a bow case with 2 bows, so light doesn't really fit the bill, but...
Well, as light as possible, right?
Right, correct.
Yeah, so I'm taking my Easton roller case, which is just awesome. It's the Recurve-sized one, and it's 1.5 inches or 2 inches below the max for international travel on most airlines, that particular sized case. So it's just fantastic because I've never gotten dinged with a luggage fee or anything like that. But the principles apply. Strap everything down, make sure nothing can move around loose in there, and use extra space for clothing and stuff. That's my basic principle for traveling.
Right, and then for me, I take a bow scale and usually weigh it in before I head for the airport. With 2 bows, 1 set of stabilizers, if I throw my weights in my other pack, I come in right at 50 pounds or 23 kilos, so I can make it under the limit.
Yeah. So, you know, this time around, though, we're taking a lot of extra stuff. We're taking, arrows and points and tools, lots of tools, because have you worked an equipment repair booth at a World Championship or another event like that?
I did the equipment repair booth in 2013 in Belek, Turkey.
So you know exactly what you can expect. Just about anything from a broken tripod to a full-up, got to re-rig this bow. Yeah,
I think last time was interesting. We didn't have any crazy scenarios, but if you can imagine it, we probably did it. Given the fact I was there last time on behalf of Hoyt, a lot of people from maybe the countries that don't have, how do I say this? They don't have
big budgets.
Yeah, big budgets or archery shops there close to them. They operate pretty much off of whatever they have available in their home shops.
Yeah, I've seen that for years, Steve.
Yeah, they want to come and get the help from the Hoyt guy or the Easton guy. They want that direct help, and they feel more confident because that guy touched their bow. And I guess if that's a service we can provide, then we're doing everything we can.
You know what amazes me is we've got first world problems here, right? I mean, we're worried about all sorts of. Does my Apple Watch work on my NFC reader when I buy breakfast this morning?
Yes.
But I've seen people show up at World Championships with 5 arrows in their quiver. I've seen people show up at World Championships with a bow sight made from a piece of aluminum that they cut with a bandsaw.
Right. Yeah, I was coaching in Mexico actually over the summer, and there was one of their archers had 3 or 4 total arrows. Only 2 of them were the same. And he was using a toothpick, electrical taped onto his riser as a sight. And I thought, wow, and I'm, worried if I have a torn fletch or something like that. It's pretty amazing what other people do to make it work.
And they've got the same passion for the sport. They just don't always have the same either financial or social opportunities that we've been very blessed to have.
Yes.
It gives me a great amount of pleasure to help people like that because you can sense the passion they've got. You can, they're like a brother. You can relate to it.
Yeah, I mean they want it more than anyone else. They go through huge sacrifices just to make it there, and they have zero chance of winning usually. But they're there, they're participating. That's all they wanted.
But you never know. I remember back in Madrid, a kid from Brazil took out the number 1 ranked guy. Number 64 took out number 1. So you can never, ever count somebody out.
Never.
That's the beauty of our sport. Well, We're going to a beautiful city in the next few hours. It's Copenhagen, and it's going to be a big temperature change for a lot of folks who are used to summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. Unless you're from Northern Europe, you might not appreciate the fact that Copenhagen is going to be in the, we're talking 60 Fahrenheit here. We're talking teens Celsius, and at night it's going to get down into the high 40s, single digits potentially Celsius. So that is offset by the fact that we're going to have something like 14 or 15 hours of daylight.
Yeah, so
more.
We've been here in Salt Lake. We've had some days 104 Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius, just absolute roasters. And I'm looking forward to the cool weather. My wife, being from Mexico, she's
Linda
terrified.
Ochoa, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, Linda's not looking forward to it. She's going to be bundled up, looking like a marshmallow. But you should see her when the snow flies here. So it's for me, it's going to be ideal. I am not participating in the event like everyone competing, so maybe for them it's not the best conditions. But I think a good cool weather with flat light is some of the best scoring weather you can get.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing some of that. And by the way, you not to pick up a sore point here, but you are the alternate for the U.S. team. You're number 4 at the selection.
Yeah, I'm the alternate. I don't know the last time an alternate has ever competed.
But it happens once in a while.
Yeah, once in a blue moon. I really, because I like the guys on the U.S. team, I hope I'm not competing in Copenhagen.
Exactly. One important thing to note here, though, is Copenhagen is more important as a world championship in this cycle than Belek was 2 years ago because of one big factor for the recurves.
Yes, Olympic team qualification.
That's right.
So, George, why don't you explain to everyone how that's going to work here in Copenhagen?
Well, you can go online and find out a lot more in depth, but in a nutshell, if you make the top 8 as a team, you have your full allocation for your team per gender. At this event, you can go to Rio. It's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And, in fact, some countries are feeling the pressure so much that they're pulling out all the stops, making sure that they have their best shot at taking home that slot for Rio.
Yeah, I know, for us as the U.S. team, Coach Lee made sure that the archers that were selected for World Championships were the archers who went to World Cup 2. He likes to put a big emphasis on the team round itself, specifically because that's how you qualify individual athletes for the Olympic Games. So they've done a lot in preparation for that, and I'm sure they're not the only country.
Yeah, history shows that if you can get over the hurdle of qualifying your teams, and preferably both teams, both men and women, at this event, the pressure is a lot less for preparation. But again, history shows that because you can see the results of what's happened in the past. For example, when the U.S. has failed to qualify both genders at the World Championship, boy, it is a pressure cooker, not pleasant for anybody. And everybody's desperate to try to avoid that kind of scenario.
Yes.
Okay, so the rain gear is going to be a de rigueur thing for this particular event. We're going to have our rain gear. We're going to have everything prepared for that. And as a shooter, there's going to be a lot of concern for some of the people, both compound and recurve, about the potential for rainy weather. For sure, Wednesday we're expecting really rainy weather. On the compound side, what do you do to prepare for rain?
Well, some things I do to prep for rain. If I am expecting it, I throw some wax on the string. Not a lot. I'm not a believer in string wax. I shoot natural colored strings that have no wax in them. But if rain is in the forecast, I do throw a light coat on there just to try to help keep it from penetrating the fibers.
The biggest problems I've seen at events, and this has been plaguing one particular team, and in particular the women, are those teams using clarifiers or other optical means on the peep.
Yes, we've seen Sarah Lopez have some issues at Shanghai 2014 and this year at World Youth Championships in Yankton. Her clarifier cost her, and that's I base my outdoor setup around not having to use a clarifier.
Korea's had some big problems too.
Yeah. I use as small of a peep as I can without a clarifier to help sharpen the image. For that reason, I go to a really small scope, a 29 millimeter Shibuya scope, and that helps. So that's all kind of built in. It's preventative measures I take when I'm building the bow setup. Beyond that, all archers, in my opinion, if you're using a stick-on dot as your aiming reticle, probably best to have a dot stuck on both sides. Just
in case one slides off when you wipe the lens?
Or a separate lens that is as close as possible, or hey, I just got to move my sight 4 clicks right and I'm back. So if you have to, you can make that swap and be up and at it again.
Now, on the recurve side, the strategy is generally keep your tab as dry as you can and make sure you flick that string before you string up that first shot. But there's not much else you can really do. You need to practice in the rain to understand how it's going to affect you individually. So, moving on from the rainy weather predictions, let's look at the performance predictions for this event. We've got a huge turnout. World Archery is reporting, Steve, that it is an historic turnout, the biggest ever.
Yeah, 100-plus countries, 620-plus athletes. So
biggest roster of recurve men ever, more than 200.
It's going to be insane. As the equipment repair booth guy, it's going to make my job interesting for the people.
I'll be helping you out a little bit.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Yeah, you'll be there.
I also have another complication in my life at the event, though.
Yeah. George is a busy man everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Okay. So, huge turnout. So everybody is coming out for this thing from Vanuatu and Tonga to Korea and the United States and Japan. And I'm going to ask you, frankly, what you expect prediction-wise for let's start with men's compound. What do you think, Mikey Schlosser, as a start out a name here?
Yeah, so for Mike, defending world champion, just broke the world record. Pretty safe bet there. I think we'll see some other stuff out of some guys who haven't been in finals yet this year. Having watched Rio, he's had a year where he's really come on strong, especially lately. He didn't have his best indoor season. He'll be the first to tell you that.
And he lost a ton of weight going into the indoor season.
Yeah, it was a struggle for him because of that.
He looked like a different guy.
Your body changes and you don't shoot the same. So
and he's adjusted some of that a little bit.
Yeah, he's been stomping lately. Him and Braden have been
Galantine.
Yeah, Braden Galantine. In our USAT shoots, at least our USA qualifiers, they've been on another level. I was shooting head to head against Braden, and he was telling me where he was going to shoot it on the X ring and then doing it. It was ridiculous to watch. So,
okay, but taking off your very justified USA team hat for a second here, because I know how close you are to the guys.
Yeah, I'm
going to ask you to be objective and tell me who outside of our favorites in the U.S. we might expect to podium. I'm going to tell you I'm thinking Korea.
I could see a Korean on the podium. Another one is, and pardon me if I butcher his name, from Turkey, Emir Demagasili. I'm sorry, I know I completely annihilated
You'll
that
notice
name.
I'm being silent here, but
yes,
that's I've got a reputation to protect. You don't have to worry about yours.
He's had some strong performances, and I could see him getting into a medal match for sure. I see Mike there again for sure.
Schlosser, yeah,
he hasn't missed a gold medal final this year. So
I can't help but feel that the French guys are going to be somewhere in the hunt.
Yep, PJ, Sebastian.
And South Africa, what about those guys? They're pretty solid. And Denmark, of course, you can't forget, the Vikings, man. I mean, they're home. They're at home. This has got to be, Martin and Patrick and Stefan have got to feel that if they don't bring a medal home from their own home country, that's got to be some kind of a black eye.
Yeah, the men's compound field is pretty deep and could go a lot of different directions. So we'll see what happens there. I don't think I would put money on anyone in Vegas right now.
All right. Well, recognizing that you're married to one of the top women's compound shooters in the world, I have to imagine that you've got your own thoughts as to who might win this thing in the women's compound category. But let me throw out a few potentialities here. Sarah Lopez.
New world record holder.
From Colombia.
Yep.
And just a terrific person, nice shooter, great lady. I mean, one of the favorites of the crowd. I really think that she's just been on a roll and has that potential.
Yes, I mean she's been so strong head to head in Shanghai. She shot a 149 to beat Linda in the gold medal finals. Anytime anyone can do that in a gold medal match, they're shooting strong.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. I mean, I hope she has her peep sight issues figured out in case there is rain. I'd hate to see that happen again.
Right. Well, I'm sure that everybody's cognizant of it by now, and if not, their coaches need a talking to as much as anyone, I would imagine.
Yes.
And then obviously we've got past world champions. We have Christina from Germany, and we've got Albina from Russian Federation that'll be there. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for anybody in the women's compound category. And Jamie Van Natta is shooting for the U.S.
Yes, and Jamie's coming off some really strong shooting.
Yeah.
She's kind of, how do I say it? She's back a little bit. I mean, she went to Europe and won the field tournament over there, the Pro Series, and then she came and she swept U.S. Nationals, U.S. Open. So she's shooting really strong.
Yeah, she's on a positive trajectory right now.
And I imagine it's been a long time since we've seen everyone together. It's been since Turkey over a month and a half ago. So I'm gonna guess that there's quite a few shooters who maybe didn't perform as well there, but they're ready to rock in Copenhagen.
Okay. Well, in your role as our Easton Pro Staff Coordinator, of course, now you've got a foot in the Recurve swimming pool too, and so let's chat a little bit about. Let's start with women's recurve before we head over to the next category. Women's recurve is obviously one of the highly competitive categories that always seems to favor Korea, but we have seen some cracks in the foundation. We have seen the Korean women. Well, I'll just come out and say it. The Japanese women blew them away in Turkey as a team, and that is extraordinary. But not because I've been working with them some over there, and I can tell you, I expected it. I in fact predicted it on my Twitter feed. So, where do you see that happening? I'm thinking we're going to see something out of Colombia too for the recurves.
Yeah, there's some strong shooting. Anna Rendon was in the gold medal final. Lasse Katuna-Lorg at Pan Am Games. It's with set system in play. It's really hard to tell. I mean, qualification gives you one thing, usually a Korea 1 through 3, but when it comes to head, you never know.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we still have tournaments. If we could predict who was going to win, we wouldn't have to bother, would we? All right, recurve men. Brady Ellison sticks his foot in the fun wheel. It says here in my notes. You want to tackle that?
Yeah. So
let me preface this, if I may.
Yes.
Brady Ellison is one of the best sportsmen and representatives of this sport that it has been my pleasure to be acquainted with for the last, I don't even know how many years I've known Brady. Long time. And I also, knowing a thing or three about the media, I don't think what we got from that ESPN story was Brady. I think what we got was a little Brady mixed in with some reporter clickbait. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say, you definitely don't want to say any press is good press, because it seems that ESPN often likes to report strictly on controversial items and not necessarily on what happens at the Pan Am Games.
Yeah, so we better clarify what happened here. At the Pan Am Games, Brady Ellison lost to Luis El Abuelo Alvarez, good friend of mine, good friend of ours, and as is Brady. And, we know these guys, and they're great competitors, both of them. And, Luis was on track for a finals slot at London Olympics. He's no slouch. He's a great shooter. Brady, of course, a great shooter. This time around, it was a set play situation where I think it was the third set, and Luis shot one off the clock and therefore had what would have been in straight scoring, a big deficit. But because it's the set system, you have the chance to come back, and that's just what he did. Yes. Came back and he won the thing. So an ESPN guy quoted Brady afterward as basically unhappy with the fact that sort of thing can happen.
Yeah, and I completely understand where Brady's coming from. I mean, he won the match 141 points to 130 points if it's straight scoring, but it's not.
And I'll point out, by the way, that in the women's recurve category, what was it, about a 3-point difference in favor of the loser based upon
1 point? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I mean, it was same scenario.
Yeah. Katuna won 6-2, but the overall score was 105-104 in favor of Anna Rendon.
Yeah, and Anna Maria, and certainly to Katuna's credit, and to Anna Maria's credit, neither of them, said boo about that subject. I mean, it didn't come up. But, Katuna was the beneficiary of that. Luis, you may argue, was the beneficiary of that. And, it's part of the game. It's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, we sign up. If you're a recurver, you sign up to play set system. And I do understand frustrations, but that's what we're working with right now.
If they change the rule partway through the match, then I could see somebody being upset.
Yeah.
But you go into that thing knowing.
Yes, you do. You step in, it's a set system, you got to win 6 points.
And the set system, I'm going to tell you as a recurve shooter, the set system is probably the ultimate format from the standpoint of keeping the audience engaged, because quite frankly, you know, I've been the announcer for a fair number of events for World Archery, and I can tell you, when you're working a crowd, you can tell what the mood of the crowd is, and when somebody's down 8 points, it sucks the air out of the room.
Yeah,
the media doesn't like it, the audience doesn't like it, the archers certainly don't like it.
Not a lot of excitement there.
Yeah, but you know, it universally is accepted now by those with any kind of forethought that this change was needed to increase the media interest in our sport, and certainly has paid off.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, to me as a competitor, if I beat someone head-to-head, straight up raw score, I want to have won the match. You know, I don't want to have to look at that and go, oh yeah, I beat this guy by 3 points, but he won. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I completely understand the set system as well. I mean, you look at other professional sports, tennis uses the set system. The World Series in baseball, you know, you play 7
best
games.
of 7, right?
Yeah, you play 7 games, and if you win 10-0 in the first game, it doesn't do you any good except give you one win.
Yeah, and this is best of 5, basically.
Yeah, so it's a similar thing to what other sports have, and I haven't heard any controversy, you know, of oh well, we won 10-0 in the first game of the World Series, and then they only beat us by 1 the remaining 4 games that they were victorious in, but we should win because we have a 6-point advantage. You know, that doesn't make sense. So, well,
there's a reason we've got differentiation. You know, with the compounds, we've got differentiation because your sport is a precision sport. It's, you know, it's trying to not miss, whereas we're trying to hit. You know.
Yeah.
And I think when I say we, I'm talking recurve on my end, and Steve, of course, compound shooter. But you know, ultimately, it is all about each individual shot. You know, because that's how you set up for either a score or a set win, is each individual shot, and that's ultimately got to be the focus, and that's what every top shooter focuses on.
You're right, correct.
One shot at a time.
Yep, one shot at a time, and they want each one to count.
We've got a lot of work ahead in this next 10 days, and we've also got some fun ahead in the next 10 days. Part of that's going to be to bring you more of this sort of communication. Steve and I are going to take the Shure microphones and the TAC recorder out to Copenhagen with us, and we'll drop a couple more podcasts.
Yeah, hoping to get a hold of some other shooters, talk to, you know, the Mike Schultzers, the Sarah Lopez about their world records, maybe even Kibo Bay if we can make that happen.
Yeah, and as a listener, we'd like your input too. So we've set up a special email address.
Yeah, podcast@EastonTP.com.
EASTONTP.com. Podcast@EastonTP.com. You can fire your questions to us. Steve and I will be checking that once in a while, and if your question is selected for our podcast and you give us your contact information, we will give you a certificate good for 12 Easton all-carbon arrows of your choice if we choose your question for the podcast.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, inaugural Easton Target podcast. We had a mix of information and controversy.
Yes.
Yeah.
In one take.
Yeah, in one take. Well, yeah, pretty much, huh?
Yeah, we semi-cut it once just because someone sneezed. But
there was one. But, you know, other than that, that was nice. And, yeah, people are rolling their eyes right now, you know.
Right.
All
but
right.
for a first go, it was pretty solid.
Okay, let's not hurt ourselves being so self-congratulatory. We might just hurt our shoulders and not be able to carry our bags. All right, that does it for the inaugural episode of the Easton Target Podcast with me, George Tekmitchov, and Steve the
Big Cat
Anderson here from Salt Lake City. See you next time from Copenhagen, and thank you for joining us.
Adios.